everyone, and welcome to this podcast series, Insights for Supplemental Insurers on the Impact of Grief for Customers. My name is Amber Scott, and I am a Director of Business Solutions with Workplace Options. This episode in the series will focus on financial grief, a timely topic given the mounting concerns over financial struggles by households across the United States. An article published in the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis titled, "Amid a Resilient Economy, Many Americans Aren't Ready for a Rainy Day," references a survey that found 2 in 3 Americans would be worried about covering 1 month of living expenses if they lost their job, and 51% of Americans would have to cut spending or borrow to pay a sudden $1,000 expense. These numbers certainly paint a grim picture. Joining me today in the conversation, I have the pleasure of welcoming back Karina Hernandez. Karina is an EAP counselor at Workplace Options. She holds a master's degree in counseling from West Texas A&M University and a bachelor's from Texas A&M International University. Her areas of focus include working with individuals who have experienced financial stress, job loss, debt, and change of jobs. Welcome back, Karina.
Thank you for having me, Amber.
Thank you for being here. My first question, Karina, is can you talk about what events trigger a person to experience financial grief?
Yes, of course, Amber. It can be difficult to process the loss of financial stability. Some symptoms can include feeling overwhelmed, confusion, conflicting emotions, and unanswered questions. Triggers such as losing a job or financial stability can feel like a fundamental pillar of one's life changing. Some triggers can appear when experiencing, let's say, car trouble, and one thing leading to another, such as trouble with the tire leading to the motor. Financial grief can include as well job loss, salary cut, unexpected costs such as medical bills, the rent arising or increasing, or even going through a pay cut or demotion can lead to certain doubts in your life. It is important to know the difference from financial grief versus financial stress. One is mourned and the other is temporary.
Thank you for that. I think we can all relate to many of those financial stressors that you just mentioned. What is the psychological impact of financial grief?
Not everyone is familiar with the term financial grief. Some may hear grief and automatically they assume the death of someone. Grief is experienced throughout one's lifetime, and it can be through financial grief. Significant psychological impact that leads to certain feelings of stress, trauma, depression, loss of self-esteem, anger, a sense of helplessness. It usually tends to feel like a loss of control over one's life and even future due to a major financial setback, like a job loss, significant debt, or large investments. It could really affect even relationships and negatively affect overall mental well-being.
Thank you, Karina. In the third quarter of 2024, the quarterly report on household debt and credit estimated that total household debt increased to just shy of $18 trillion, and the non-housing debt accounts for approximately $5 trillion, with things such as auto loans, retail cards, student loan balances, and consumer loans impacting that number. Dealing with financial setbacks can be difficult enough to deal with on your own. But if someone has a family to take care of, they now have that added burden of communicating about the financial struggles. What are some healthy ways that you can recommend for a person to communicate something as sensitive as financial crisis with the family? Whether that's things like the kids can no longer play sports because the parents can't pay for that, or the family's been so busy living in their big house, buying all the new cars, that they ignored that they were going into debt. Can you talk a little bit about how to communicate with the family?
Yes, of course, Amber. I even felt that myself as you were sharing that. This is such a profound question. It varies on the child's understanding and parenting approach. A recommendation I can openly discuss within the situation is really acknowledging everyone's feelings, actively listening to each other, avoid blame, work together to create a plan to manage the financial challenges while providing emotional support throughout the whole process. Something I like to share with my clients is communication is key. There's different strategies that I recommend. Using I statements is a technique that can be used, such as avoiding to use you statements. You did this. Rather using I feel, I did. A strategy I recommend to use in order to assist when wanting to appear confident or dealing with conflict, other than using I statements, is using open-ended questions. Ask a question that you can encourage them to share their thoughts and feelings. How does a child feel about perhaps mom working more hours, having to validate everyone's feelings? What is their biggest concerns about their finances right now? How are you feeling about the situation, right, as a whole household? Another technique can be such as using something that's within the DBT called Dear Man. The D stands for describe. So describe the situation that you're in. Express what it is, what you're feeling. Assert, be direct, right, with what is going on. Reinforce, reward people who respond positively. For example, this can be simple as a smile, a thank you, right? Mindful. It's easy to get sidetracked when we're going through so much challenges in our lives. So just being mindful, right? Avoid what is any type of harmful arguments. Appear confident is for the A. And N is negotiate. No one can have everything they want all the time.
Well, that's great advice. As you mentioned, communication is the key in every relationship. So that's great guidance that you just provided related to how to communicate when in a financial crisis. Can you talk a little bit about the role that resilience plays when coping with financial grief?
Yes, of course, Amber. That is an amazing question. Not a lot of people know the meaning of resilience. Resilience is the ability to adapt well to difficult situations and bounce back from challenges. Of course, resilience is not always easy when dealing on something heavy like financial grief. So being able to build resilience takes time.
Are there techniques used in counseling that can be helpful in easing people's financial grief?
One of the things that I'm a strong advocate on is mindfulness. Being able to have what it is, a moment that you can really bring yourself back to the here and the now. Why? Because it's so common as humans for us to look at the past or the future, and we dismiss what's in front of us when we're dealing with challenges. So mindfulness can help us really have ourselves in a centered way within our physical and mental health through the chaos. One of the things that I really want to stress to the audience is, to just be patient with yourself, avoid any impulsive decisions, and focus on what you can control.
Sound advice. Thank you so much, Karina. Thank you for your time today, and thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. For more information on Workplace Options products and services, or to just leave a comment and feedback about today's podcast, you can access the link to the Contact Us page in the show notes, where you'll be able to send us a message directly. Thank you all, and until next time, take care.